Hello, my name is Bryant Reed. Here today we're going to talk about the cardiovascular system, and the lesson is an introduction to the cardiovascular system for the EMT basic. So some things today that we want to learn are, well, number one, to know the purpose of the cardiovascular system, we want to know what it actually does, why it's important to the body, and how it helps us to live. Another thing is we want to be able to comprehend how it works, not only why it's there, but how it does what it does. We're also going to talk about the parts of the cardiovascular system, the anatomy, and understand it a little bit. We want to be able to trace the blood flow throughout the body. We really, in what direction the blood flows, and be able to trace it and follow it throughout. We also want to basically describe the ins and outs of the heart, so we really want to have a good basis understanding of it and how it works with its surroundings. What is the purpose of the heart? Well, firstly, it pumps the blood, and we can't live if the blood is not pumped. If the heart stops pumping, then our cells, they no longer get the oxygen and the nutrients needed. They no longer get all their waste and byproduct removed from the body. So, and the function of the cardiovascular system is, number one, to provide oxygen and nutrients to the tissues by collecting oxygen from the lungs and delivering that with nutrients throughout the bloodstream, through our blood vessels, and to the tissues. And when it gets there, here's another function and purpose. It delivers those oxygen nutrients, but it also transports, it picks up that carbon dioxide and other waste products that are formed in the cellular tissues. It'll pick that up and actually carry it back and excrete it from the body. So that's kind of two big purposes there. Some other purposes we'll talk about and mention. The cardiovascular system carries specialized cells throughout the body. It helps the body with the immune system and hormones. In your blood, you have your red blood cells that help have hemoglobin. They carry the oxygen, so that is carried in some of the cells that are carried. The white blood cells that help with infection and fight off the bad, so to say. So that's going to help us. We also have platelets that are carried in the blood. They're going to help with clotting. We're going to talk about this stuff later. But also the nutrients that are carried and hormones. Another big function of the cardiovascular system is with thermoregulation. Now that's kind of a bigger word, but really what it means is it helps to regulate your temperature. So getting into that, you have receptors all through your body that help pick up on pressure with baroreceptors or thermoreceptors that pick up on temperature. But your smooth muscle within your blood vessels, they can actually dilate or constrict. And when you do that, they'll do that in the arterioles, and it will either draw blood to or away from your core. So if your arterioles out in your peripherals, if they dilated, then that would draw blood out into your arms or into your legs, into your extremities. If they constricted, then they would be limited on the blood that would be allowed in there. So how does this help with thermoregulation? Well, if you're overly hot and you want to cool down and let out, then they can dilate and bring the blood out. If you're getting too cold and your body core is getting cold, they can constrict and the blood will flow back in to help keep your core warm, because that's your vital functions in your core. So these are some of the functions of the cardiovascular system, and as you can see so far, it's a pretty important system. A little bit about the anatomy. Well, what is involved in the cardiovascular system? What all are the parts of the cardiovascular system? Well, number one, you've got your heart. And we have a model here for the heart. The human heart is a 4-chambered heart. You have 2 ventricles and 2 atrium. And we'll talk about that in a second. The others, you got your heart, you got your blood vessels, that includes your veins, your arteries, and your capillaries, and also your blood. You can't have, there's nothing there to pump, you gotta have something to pump, so that's where we have the blood. In your heart, we're going to go a little bit more depth here. You have your atrium and your ventricles, like we're talking about, the 4 chambers of the heart. Now let me pull this a little bit closer, and can't see the PowerPoint pretty good, but we'll be able to send you a digital copy of that. The atrium, this is really what your heart looks like right here, and we'll take a close look at it. Okay, this is what's called the apex. It's actually, this will be about the angle it's sitting in your body right here. You have 2 ventricles. We're going to open this up so you can get a good look at it. Okay. Up top, we have the atrium. This is the right side, and that's, if it was sitting in me, it'd be just like this. Not this big, of course, but about the size of your fist, roughly. But when blood comes into the heart, it comes over here into the right atrium, and it'll go down into the right ventricle, where it is then pumped. And this will be the tricuspid valve. We'll talk about that just in a second. We just want to mention and point out everything now. When the blood leaves the right ventricle, it is pumped into the pulmonary arteries and sent through the pulmonary circulatory system around the lungs, and that's where it gets rid of CO2. You exhale, you breathe out your CO2 that your cellular tissues have produced, but you also bring in oxygen, and that oxygen is rebound, and so your blood is reoxygenated. So we're going to back up just a second. When it comes into the right ventricle, actually comes in through your vena cava. We'll get into blood flow in a little bit, but it's going to come in there deoxygenated, and then it's going to go through your lungs, get pumped out, and then it's going to come back reoxygenated. So it's going to be oxygenated blood. But then it'll come back into your left atrium and down through the bicuspid valve and into the left ventricle, where it's then pumped through the aorta and back through the whole body. I'm going to leave this right here, and we're going to use that a little bit more just in a second to talk about some different things. But what we need to point out now, we talked about the 4 chambers of the heart and the anatomy of the heart. You've got the right atrium, and then the right ventricle, and then the left atrium and the left ventricle, right there. But also your valves, we're going to talk about those a little bit more. The tricuspid is between your right atrium and right ventricle, and the bicuspid is between your left atrium and left ventricle. One little saying to help remember this is you try before you buy, and that's going to help you remember your flow too. It's going to come in the right side, and then the left side, and then it goes to the body. So you try before you